Hi everybody, my name is Fern DeFay, and this is another video within the series of the Deeper Mysteries Occult History study sessions, and we're focusing to start off that course on the deeper mysteries of the Celtic tree wisdom and learning about the Oghams. And here we are to talk about the vowel combos and consonant combos. These we addressed briefly in the previous video about the long count of the full ohms, but I wanted to give it its own little video too because it is its own beast. Amongst all of the ohms, this one set is particularly interesting because it's kind of anomalous. It first shows up really kind of in the medieval manuscripts of the illuminated manuscripts of the monks that were early Christian monks that were still recording what they called Celtic Christianity, in which they were taking the old Druid nature religion and hybridizing it to fit into their monastic Christian deeper mysteries. They couldn't get the old people to stop worshiping the old ways, so they had to find a way to incorporate them into the new ways. And in that way, it's kind of interesting because they've been around for a long time. So it's just because they came later in the system doesn't make them less authentic. They're just the new kids in the class, but they're still really old. It's just maybe not the original OG ohms. And so, but I just wanted to give a little nod to them because some people use them, some people don't. Some people kind of throw them out of the count because they go, oh, that's not the original count. And they go, well, it's still been around for at least 10 centuries, and that's a long ass time. So it's not like they're non-existent or just some weird anomaly, but they are a different kind of beast because we have in this system not only the ohms and the hash mark time system, we also have them in symbolic nature here because they kind of ran out of hash mark systems. These do correlate to these though in many charts by different authors. It used to confuse me about whether they're the same thing or if they were different, but it really just depends on who was the one writing it down, from monk to monk in the different books, or modern pagan authors to different authors looking at the different texts. So you have to use a little bit more discerning judgment with these and sit into your own inner knowledge and see if it resonates with you at all. But it's interesting because not only do they have the traditional fuse with the hash marks, but these interesting alternate symbols, but they also refer to them not only with their Gaelic tree names and their Latin letters in the vowel combos, they also have Greek consonant combos, because at that time, if you were a learned person, you used both Gaelic as a spoken language and Latin and Greek as a written language of literacy. So is most people go, well, why is there even Greek in the system? This isn't even Greek. How does that have anything to do anything? Well, it only has anything to do anything because that was the alternate language that the clerks were using at that time in their scholastic vernacular, So that's why some people take it or leave it, So I kind of consider this the plus or minus set because it's not really required in some senses, but it also is still there and long lasting. Sometimes I like to jokingly call it the WTF set, because I don't know what they were on about, but they're still there. So, anyways, a little preamble aside there and where these come from. I'm not sure if they're on any of the ancient standing stones, but they do appear in the medieval manuscripts and from there on. So, with the hash system, we have EA, which corresponds to CH, Latin and Greek, and then both a one hash at an angle on one side or an X. And I do believe that these are congruent with each other. And some people think the EA refers to Iadha for aspen, but that's already covered in the E vowel in the common solar holiday count. So I'm not really sure about that. That seems to be a little bit inconsistent to me. But when they refer to CH or KH, it relates to code, which means grove. So I myself prefer to refer to it as code, the grove, because aspen's already been used. So that seems a little more sensible to me. Moving up, we have OI with its 2 hashes, which correlates to TH, which is the diamond, which relates to Oweir. OI, Oweir, that makes sense. And that relates to spindle. I don't know about where you live, but where I live in Cascadia, we don't really have a lot of spindle trees, so I don't have as much of a personal reference for that one. But historically, they say the spindle is what they use to use this drop spindles for making wool, and also on the spinning wheels, and wool and spinning arts and loom tapestries. That was very important to everyone's life. So that's why it was so important. They even have a place in the sacred tree count. Even though it does not have a holiday or a lunar month, it's still on. These are all still important on the count. Moving up, we have IA. Sometimes people refer to it as IO. That's why in some systems they count 4, sometimes they count 5 or 6, just depends on how you break it down. I go with 5 because all the other systems are 5. But this one, IA or IO in Latin, or PE in Greek, relates to Iphon or gooseberry. They love their fruit, so that made it on the list. And then UI is 4 counts on the side, or PH in Greek, which relates to Euliad, which is the spiral, which is honeysuckle. And I like that one because it actually is representational of what it is, because honeysuckles grow in a spiral. So that's kind of cool, makes it easy to remember. And then up one more, we have 5 hashes, which is AE, which relates to X or XI in Greek. And that looks like 3 lines making a net or some kind of grid plan, and that is Phagos for beach. So most of the ohms make real easy sense that the first letter relates to the first letter of the Gaelic name of the trees. This is not as consistent or easy to remember, which is why I think a lot of people kind of may or may not resonate with this system as much. But it is in many, many, many of the sources. So I just wanted to cover it for full disclosure of all the different forms of tradition. Because like I've said in some of these other videos, there's a lot of regional variances, and depending on what the oral legacy was, how many people went through the telephone game before it got written down, and then who wrote it down, and then how many other scholars later over the centuries wrote it down, and how things evolved. So I think that's why there's a little bit more inconsistencies with this system. But it's still interesting that there's both vowel combos and consonant combos and interesting symbols. So that's cool. And also that the grove code is the grove where they would do magic, because druids would do magic in trees and circles of trees and call it the grove. So that's why that's important. And like I said, spindle's important because of the powers to make clothes and by weaving. And then gooseberry because it produces food, honeysuckle for the sweetness of life, and beech. Cool. So there's the extra. What the beech? It's the last one in the order. So, they're like, oh yeah, don't forget about beech. Put that in there. So, as traditions evolve, things get added to the list. So maybe it was just some dude along the way that was like, well, what about these extra trees? We gotta throw those in. So, this is just a little bit of the extra bonus round, as we want to call it. And with that, I hope this makes some kind of sense and clarifications for you. And like I said, came in. The first place I've seen it is from Finn's Window, or Fion's Window, which is from a 12th or 13th century manuscript in the Book of the Ballymote. And I will have a whole nother video on Finn's Window in another section. But these glyphs here do appear there. So that's where I've first seen it in the line. So I like the Book of the Ballymote and Finn's Window for many reasons, so I wanted to include them because they're on that chart. And if you want to do more research on that, look into Finn's Window. we'll have a whole nother video on that in the future when we get into the intermediate lessons. And with that, this is the last of the seasonal series of the basic lessons of the counting system of the alphabet. So now we've covered the long count, the short count, with the lunar, the solar, and the combos. And from that, now we can move into future videos that go into intermediate lessons on mnemonic devices and alternate classifications and memory cues and diagrams to go further. If you like this and want to know more, subscribe so you can be told when in your notifications when more videos come out. And if you like this, go ahead and give your thumbs up. And if you want to share this with your friends and family on social media so more people know, that's a great idea too, because in these days we're all learning a little bit of the piece of the puzzle of remembering the old ways and bringing them forward into the new world, because the more we know, the better. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope this is some food for thought for you. And until next time, we'll see you on the next series of videos. Bye now.